Resident Evil 4, a game that has sustained 18 years of existence with multiple ports and a remake on the horizon. But do people actually like this game? Is it iconic? Is it the best Resident Evil in the series history? I may not have all the answers, but I'm open to talking about the game and having discussions with people about it. Join us now as we talk about Resident Evil 4 on the newest episode of Pause and Effect. Hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Pause and Effect. I'm your host, CJ, and joining me this episode are my friends Tony and Matt. Welcome back to the show, you two. How you both doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Actually, just about the same.
Yeah, glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Okay, so today's episode is dedicated to Resident Evil 4, which is both my favorite Resident Evil and one of my favorite games of all time. If there's anything to be said about the other games in the series in comparison to these, then feel free to bring them up. And speaking of which, I have to ask, what's your experience with the Resident Evil series? How many of them have you played?
All of them.
Wait, really?
Each and every single one of them.
I did not know that. I thought you
Dang,
played
really?
a good amount of them, but I didn't think you were at all of them.
No, I am a die-hard RE fan, and I've played every single one of them, but the first one I've ever played was definitely 4.
Okay. Wait. Have you does that mean that you've played Operation Raccoon City and Outbreak?
Yep, and even that one that they made, that arcade one, that shooting one.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
yeah. I think they've done arcade for maybe 2 of them. I'm not entirely sure. But damn, all right. Did you play the Game Boy one that has like that you play as, I think, Barry?
Yeah, that little interesting one that they've made that nobody really gives light to.
Yeah, I think it's not canon anymore either. I think they
Oh, really?
I think so.
Interesting.
It's like on a boat or something. It's yeah. Get rid of that. Yeah, no, that's I have not played that one. I'm just asking because that's like the more obscure ones I've heard, but that's actually really impressive if you've played all of them then. For me, I've been working my way back through the Resident Evil games. I believe I started with either Resident Evil 2 or 5. One of those are my first Resident Evil games. I can't remember which one exactly, but I know that Resident Evil 2 is my favorite, and I've played 5, 6, 7. I've played, and then I've also played Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, and then I've also played 4, 0, and I want to say there's one. Oh, Code Veronica. So I've played more of the older games than the newer ones, but also they're the originals for 2, 3, and 1. I'm actually working my way through the 1 remake right now.
Yeah, like I'm in a kind of a similar boat with Tony. Unlike the two of you, I've not played all of them, but Resident Evil 4 was my first game. And then I played not the original versions of 2 and 3, but I played the remakes of those.
Okay.
I played 5, I played 6, 7, Village. I played Revelations 1 on the 3DS version, the original one that released.
Oh, I forgot to even mention those ones. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I own Revelations 2 on PC, but I haven't started it.
Revelations 2
And
was good. I did play that one too.
okay. And I played 5 minutes of Resident Evil Outbreak File 2 because I rented it from Blockbuster one time and was like, these tank controls are dumb.
Welcome to old school Resident Evil.
Yeah, like I get the feeling that if I tried to play that game again now, I'd probably have a better time. And the only other one I've played is Operation Raccoon City, which apparently is non-canon. but yeah, that works.
Did I say I played 6 also? Because I did.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did
you
play
did.
that too, except for Ada's campaign. That's the only one I haven't played.
Yeah. Oh
I
wait,
had-
did I forget to bring up Village, or did I bring that up?
I think you mentioned it.
Okay,
Uh,
good.
I have
we
not
did.
played that one though.
We mentioned too many titles. I can't keep track anymore. There's just so many titles.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I do remember too. I have played Village's DLC campaign, I think Shadows of Rose. And
Yes.
but I have not played Resident Evil 7's 2 DLC campaigns.
Those are fun. Especially the. So I liked End of Zone. That was a good DLC for that one. And then the other one, I forget what it's called, but it's
Not
the
a
one where you
Hero?
play. Is it Not a Hero? It's the
I'm
one that
pretty
you play the uncle, and he's not infected,
Oh,
but he
I
just
thought
goes
that was End
around.
of Zoe.
Oh, maybe that is okay. Maybe
Yeah.
I gotta remember what the other one is then for that. Oh, is the other one that you play as Chris?
Yep, the one you played as Chris.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's Not a
that's it.
Hero, I
Okay, so
think.
that's what I meant. So that one was good, but then Ended Zone was the fun one because it was just dumb fun of just punching everything in sight.
Yeah, you're essentially One Punch Man.
It was ridiculous, but so good. It
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. Not a Hero is the Chris one. End of Zoe is the one where you're playing as her uncle, Joe.
uh I would like to touch back real quick that I'm actually going through the Resident Evil games in a weird order because I played 7 and I decided I wanted to catch up with everything before I think either it was the 2 remake or if I wanted to do it for Resident Evil 8. But basically I ended up just cleaning up some games and jumping back to the beginning of the series. So I've started with so I finished up Resident Evil. I replayed Resident Evil 2 because originally back in the day, I ran out of ammo and died at the very last battle of G for Claire's campaign. And while I absolutely still love that game from back then, I just never got back to playing it because I just didn't want to restart everything because I just had no ammo anywhere near the final boss.
Oh, I
So
understand.
I would have had to restart. So I eventually did come back to that, played through all 4 scenarios, played through hunks mode, and then I moved on to 3. Then I moved on to 4. No, I moved on to 3. Then I moved on to Code Veronica. Then I moved on to 4, and then I've jumped back to 0. Now I'm doing 1 remake. So 2 remake and 3 remake are next, and then I will be playing 8 after that.
Yeah, you have quite a task ahead of you.
I do, and I'm worried I might be getting burnt out a little bit. But at least this is the last old school controls Resident Evil before I start moving back on to the modern stuff.
Yeah, I think
I do
that
feel that.
now that I got to play the remake for 2 and 3, I don't know if I can go back and play the original again. It's just spoiled at this point. Like everything's so good.
So I was worried. Going back into playing the older ones, I was worried about dealing with the old control scheme. And I will try to tie this into Resident Evil 4 since we've been going off the rails a bit. So you have the old tank controls, and just like at first it's a pain. It's a pain because you have to be like so committed to everything you do with it, and you can't react very well, so it actually adds to the tension. And I think I enjoy more of I think I actually might enjoy them a lot more after going through like 2 of the old games, but 4 is like the point where they convert to like more of the modern scheme. So and still let you kind of like actually I would like to step back. I think the 1 remake, now that I'm playing that, because 0 and 1 share the same like hybrid controls. It's like I think those are the good medium between old controls and new controls.
Oh,
And
really?
then
You think so?
Yeah. Excluding 7 and 8, because 7 and 8 are first person.
Yep.
And I have not played the 2 and 3 remakes. I'm actually hoping that the 2 and 3 remakes are actually the perfect blend between the older style and Resident Evil 4 style controls. Or not controls. Just
Well,
a
I'm not going to
perfect
say
game
anything.
overall. Yeah. But four's gameplay, because I did touch up on it a little bit before we started playing. I started recording this. It feels very intuitive, of a step above, evolution from the older controls, which is probably one of the reasons why it cemented itself so well in gaming history.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not mistaken, 4 was supposed to come out, or whatever it is they called it at the time, before 3. But I think 3 made it first.
No, that is Code Veronica that you're
Code
thinking.
Veronica.
Code
Okay,
Veronica and 3, because
yeah,
Code
that's
Veronica
probably
was
what I'm
originally
thinking.
supposed to be 3, and then they decided to test with more of the action elements for 3, and eventually something I read along the lines of that they that they wanted to do something with publishing, like they couldn't put a mainline title on multi-platform, so they released Code Veronica as a separate game, while 3 was for the PlayStation only at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
there's so many
that does
games
tie
to
into.
keep track
Sorry.
of now.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been out for at least 20 years, if not more. So
Or coming up on it, yeah. I do remember because I looked this up before we started recording, and hell, I'm looking at it again now. Little bit of fun history details. Resident Evil 4 was part of this GameCube exclusivity deal that Capcom did back during the GameCube's heyday, called the Capcom 5, which were like 5 different games, all made by Capcom, all published, or no, not published, directed by Shinji Mikami, who was the director for Resident Evil 2 and the creator of Tango Gameworks, who made The Evil Within.
didn't he
And
just leave Tango?
he
Or
did,
am I
yeah.
mixing that up? Okay.
He did just leave Tango. And there were 5 games, one of which got canceled, but all of which were like exclusive to GameCube for a time, called PN03, which I couldn't even tell you what the hell that was about. Beautiful Joe was the second one. The canceled one was
I
Dead
remember hearing
Phoenix.
about
Then Resident Evil 4. And the last one was Killer 7, which kickstarted Suda51's career.
that. Okay. It's almost like every well-known game developer is connected.
Yeah. Yeah, like creators like Shinji Mikami, Suda51, Hideki Kamiya, Atsushi Inaba, around this time between like 2000 and 2006, they all worked for Capcom before going off to go do their own thing.
Okay.
Like Shinji Mikami would later establish Tango Gameworks. Suda51 would establish his own studio. I don't know if the studio is called Suda51 or if it's a Grasshopper Manufacture. And then Atsushi Inaba and Hideki Kamiya went on to form Platinum Games.
Reminds me of, I believe, the Unreal developers. A lot of those went off and built their own games, their own game studios.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Are you looking it up?
Because I think you had people like Cliff Blazinski, you had
oh yeah, Cliffy B.
American McGee. Or am I mixing this up with am I actually be mixing it up with with id Software too. I'll have to look back in at that.
All right, well, let me know
that's
if
a conversation for somewhere else.
yeah, definitely let me know what your search turns up if you do look that up after.
Will do. I know that there was some coming from the early games of first person shoot or early days of first person shooters where a lot of big names were made.
Yeah. Now, Resident Evil 4 has been re-released many, many times since its original release in January 11th, 2005. Which versions of Resident Evil 4, if you've played multiple, have you played?
I think what was it, PS2, right?
Yeah, it did come out on PS2 after.
Yeah, I think it was the PS2 that I played over and over. And then unfortunately, I still have my PS2, but unfortunately, my OG RE4 copy got lost between the move.
Oh,
Went to
no.
Well, that's
but
unfortunate.
I definitely gone back and played that a couple of times. And now I'm kind of looking forward to playing the new one.
I believe I played on PC. I don't think I ever got to play the GameCube one, which my friends had back in the day. They definitely played it a lot, but I kind of steered clear of it at that time. I wasn't interested in Resident Evil back then.
Yeah, I wasn't either. The version that I first picked up, because my parents took game rating seriously in my house. So I wasn't really allowed to like play anything like predominantly M-rated at all until I turned 17 or 16. Although, fun fact, the first M-rated game I ever bought was Devil May Cry Special Edition on PS2, or Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition.
Which
But no.
That's interesting because Devil May Cry 1 was what Resident Evil 4 was going to be.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I read that. Like, it was originally going to be like very actiony, and Shinji Mikami was like, dude, no. So that got splintered off into Devil May Cry, and then they initially reworked something that they had into Resident Evil 4, and it worked.
Well, definitely was still actiony. I would definitely say
for sure
4 is actiony.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But no, the first version of Resident Evil 4 I ever played was the Wii version, actually.
Oh wow!
Wow. Yeah, okay, with the aiming.
Yeah, with the motion aiming, it was definitely a lot easier to get headshots.
That's interesting. Okay,
and that about really covers the extent of it.
I've heard people talk highly about that too. But I don't know if I'd feel comfortable using the Wii remote at this point.
It could be worse. It could be the VR version, which I do not even want to try because I can't imagine keeping track of it.
VR actually sounds like fun. To be honest, I kind of do want to try that.
I want to try it. I just don't know if I could rationalize spending $40 for it. 20 maybe. 40 is a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I only say I can't imagine because what was that? Was it 7 that introduced VR RE for the first time? Yeah. I got a chance to try a bit of that, and that was terrifying. But RE4 is kind of like its own terrifying. But I'm more worried about getting motion sickness with RE4 just because of all the stuff you would have to be doing.
Yeah, and like how often you have to like swerve your head just to keep track of everything.
True.
Yeah, but
Devin definitely has less enemies to deal with.
That too. Yeah. To your rated M story, CJ, it's kind of similar, but not really. So my parents were very much lax about that. But my first RE4 copy was taken from a GameStop when I've heard about them for the first time. I literally brought all of my games, got it exchanged. RE4 was the only thing that caught my interest, and the cashier was essentially like, "Nope. Can't sell this to you."
What a game that was.
Right? No. Can't sell this to you. So I came back with my dad, and he just had this expression on his face like, you do realize this is a rated M game, right? And then my dad's like, yeah, so you got pissed off. I got my game. That's all that matters.
That clerk was way more concerned than I think I've ever seen a game sales clerk, like game store clerk.
Yeah,
I mean, They definitely told me like, yeah, I can't tell you this or whatever for whatever the age is. I've had that before, but like to be so adamant when the parent comes.
Yeah, and it happened to me many times too. But it's like it's funny, but it definitely made. I think that was the first M game that I got with my parents, with my dad in particular. So that I spent so much time playing that game, but definitely chowed me trying to make it past that initial village. That was a nightmare. It's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I unfortunately do not have any of those memories because I did not play that until I did not play Resident Evil 4 until a few months ago.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Matt, you have the distinction, or you're in the very unique position where you played the game for the very first time recently. How was it for you? What did you think?
So I want to preface this.
All right.
I enjoyed the game. It was good, but I also at the same time don't think it's as good as everyone else says.
That is a statement.
I do, it's not that I dislike the game or anything. I think that there is definitely a bit of rose tinted glasses there, and I think after going through a lot of the older games, I do think that I personally like the old style of Resident Evil, where it's a lot more of the puzzle solving, uh ammo management, and just it was always a lot more tense in the older style games. uh 4, I felt like I could run through it. I was always constantly being dropped ammo, and it had that creepy like atmosphere to it, but I don't think I ever felt tension, and I don't think um I was ever scared or anything. I didn't have anything like the liquor moment from Resident Evil 2, or like the dogs jumping through the window of like Resident Evil 1. So or like just I didn't feel like this like yeah, I didn't feel like it had that horror element. It had the horror atmosphere. It just didn't do anything with that because it was so focused on becoming a action game. Um, and I'm also coming from a perspective where I played Resident Evil 5 and 6 before this. So I already understand like how the newer like control scheme or the franchise went. Um, and it feels like it's the start. 4 is the like a start of a different game series within the same game franchise, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
A
it
bit.
does. And I think the fact that you've played 4 after playing the OGs probably really did added a lot of that
Mhm.
onto what you're currently viewing it as, especially because it's recently too. And because
Yeah.
you played through so many games already at
To
this
be
point.
fair, I think I think it's more of I finished 4 a few months ago, but I also that I don't think I started. I don't think I heard about the 4 remake announcement until after I had already started 4.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I wasn't actually going in trying to like catch up for that or anything.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I were to have played it like recently, I would probably feel the very same way. But because I played it at a young age, I had that over imagination, if that
Mm.
made sense. So everything was terrifying.
Another thing to note is that I okay, I want to think of how to say this. um Resident Evil 4 is well known for like popularizing a lot of like third person shooter mechanics. So I understand that it was a big moment in time, and that definitely changes the effect. But coming from my perspective, I've played so many other third person shooters, some with better control schemes than 4. Again, it still kind of felt like it had like that hybridization of like the older tank controls,
Hmm.
where you have to then move, stop, shoot. But I've played newer games like Dead Space, which is directly inspired by Resident Evil 4.
Mhm.
Which I absolutely love Dead Space. Absolutely love that game. But I liked it also because of the fact that it had more horror elements to it. Um, but there's a lot of like missing context that I have that I don't have for Resident Evil 4 because I did not play it when it was like this was a new thing. We were moving into a whole new style of games. And I think that's partially one of the reasons why I also don't have as much love as everyone else for this game. So again, I acknowledge is a good game. I enjoy it. I love Mercenaries, but if Mercenaries got better with 5, and I played the hell out of 5 with a friend, and I played it for more of the action and not the horror that I expect from Resident Evil at this point. So 4,
Fair.
I definitely think it started the trend towards more action Resident Evil, and as I've said, I consider it more a different series within the same franchise. And you can kind of say the same thing about Resident Evil 7, because it's again resetting what the franchise is, and actually taking it back to those more horror roots and ammo management, and I think it brings back a lot of more classic elements back into Resident Evil. 4 is definitely a good game though, but I don't think I agree. I agree with everyone else saying how much of a masterpiece it is.
I think part of the reason why I like 4 so much is because of its inventory management.
I did really enjoy that. I caught myself a lot trying to mess with the inventory management.
Yeah. No, because it's the first game in the series, and they didn't bring it back until Village, where you have like, instead of having just like slots for stuff, instead you're given like this giant attaché case where like it's the first time where you're allowed to just hoard, I think, where like you can have like, oh, instead of just prioritizing, okay, what do I want? Like this gun, like slots for ammo, slots for herbs. Like, no, if you can fit it in the case, it's yours to keep. And
I want them all.
I would argue that 7 kind of brought it back. Not to such a degree though. It's it still has like a grid, but it's a smaller grid, and most things only take up 1 spot. Shotgun like takes up like 2 spots, but like I think 7 technically brought that back before Village.
Yeah, it did
Not to such a
hinted.
degree.
It did hinted at that system a little bit, and that much I vaguely remembered. But yeah, I think just like you said, 7 really did reset the genre a little bit and brought back a lot of the elements, and then it also kind of brought back systems that it could improve upon later. So interesting to see how that's all going to get tied back to the 4 remake.
Honestly, I would say that 7, I think, is my second favorite Resident Evil, and I feel like it's the greatest hits of all the Resident Evil games so far. It takes that old horror atmosphere, the old puzzle solving, adds the first, puts it into a first person perspective, making it more of a modern style game. Exploring like all of the mansion and everything, and the inventory management, and also the how you make weapons, not weapons, ammo from like Resident Evil 3 and I forget if Code Veronica had too. I don't think so. But it brings back like a lot of old staples from some of the previous games and puts it all together in a modern package.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But yeah, Resident Evil 4's inventory management was definitely a lot of fun messing around with, and just kind of like spending ridiculous times for sometimes no reason trying to juggle what you have.
Right, hold up, I found this grenade. I need to spend an hour trying to figure out how to rearrange this.
Right? Like, hold on, I know I could just throw in this 2 spots right here, but now I got to move my shotgun all the way over here, and I got to move the pistol over here, and then these herbs down here so that they're in that spot, and then I can put all the grenades on the right side, right next to the flash grenades, and then like the ammo here, and now it's perfect.
Right, I think that game, it's probably the first time perfectionism came out. It's like, no, it has to be perfect.
And then it was even better because then you take like 10 steps, you'd kill like 2 or 3 guys, and now you ran out of one of the ammo things, and you pick up like another herb or something, and now you have to rearrange the whole thing again.
Right.
It was fun, but I definitely wasted a lot of time doing that.
You guys would either love or hate a save room organizational puzzle on Steam.
Oh, I think I saw you trying that at one point.
Yeah,
I definitely think I would try
I definitely
it.
streamed it to Discord a couple times where it basically just took Resident Evil 4's inventory management system and turned it into a puzzle game with multiple stages.
God. That reminds me of like those like the stupid like little block puzzle from back on the old iPhones. You swipe things to move them all around and then like to get the one piece out.
Yeah.
No, I think I would enjoy that too. Actually, if you mind spoiling one thing for me, since I have not played the remakes for 2 and 3 yet, did they try bringing that system back to them at all, or is it like more just a straight up like list of items you have in your thing?
From my recollection, because it's been a while since I've played either,
Mhm.
it still, for the most part, I think, uses the I want to say modernized grid system thing that 7 has.
Okay, that's fair. All right, that's a good compromise. It kind of
Yeah,
works because there were still in the old ones items that take 2 spaces and whatnot, but the thing that it was just 2 lines next to each other, so you don't have to manage as much.
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, there's things that you can pick up that don't count towards that inventory management.
Okay,
But
kind of like defense items or something.
Yeah, but it's been a while for me, so I'm very vague on the details.
Okay.
So yeah, going back to OG Resident Evil 4 for a minute. Did you guys have a favorite or least favorite and least favorite moment of the game, or barring that, favorite and least favorite aspect?
Saving the dog. That was my favorite moment of the
Saving
game.
the dog.
Saving the dog, because that
He
dog
comes
came
back
for
and
me.
helps you. Yep. That was
Like-
that was definitely a good. Man, I think I started liking more of the castle at the end. Mainly because it started feeling more like the older games.
Really,
Um,
I've hated the castle.
Really.
I actually
I
don't
don't
mind the
know.
castle as much. I think it's the island that really gets on my nerves.
Oh, the island to me wasn't that bad, but I think what I hate about the castle so much was I not all of the platforming ish stuff that you have to do to kind of get to the next section. It just felt like the whole game was leading around a big area, and then all of a sudden it's super combined, and everything is just
Totally
it was
fair.
just a weird transition for me.
Totally fair. I will say
Yeah.
my one big gripe with the castle, and actually, to be honest, this overall game, like the whole game, and one of the reasons why I don't like it as much as the older games, is that it's a very linear game. As in, like, you're on one track going through the whole thing. Sure, you've come back to some areas, but it's never like you're taking the time to plot out your own movements throughout the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, Resident Evil 2, my favorite. That police station, I got so familiarized because I would always I would go to one room, I get the items I get the item I need, and I open up the map like, okay, now I need to get over to here, or I've got too many items in my inventory and I need to get back to the safe room or something. And I have to then figure out based off the map how to get to the closest safe room or how to get to a certain area. And depending on what I have left alive and dead and killed, I can then be like, okay, well, these rooms are clear or these rooms are risky, and maybe I go through this because I kind of need to go through here or something. I don't have any of that in Resident Evil 4. That it was a very much hey, you go from this area to this area to this area, and then it just felt more on rails. And coming from the older games, that's it felt like I kind of lost an important part of the formula.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that they tried to include one of those puzzles where like, hey, you get like 3 things and put it together, and then you can move forward, like in the castle, but it was still on a linear track. Like
Yeah,
you
I
had to
feel
go through the
like
one door, you get the one piece, and you just keep going and get the next piece, and you keep going, get the third piece, and then you go around and you open up the door, and like, hey, now you're back at the beginning, and now you can slap them all in and go through. There's no like, hey, like I go to this area, come back, this area, come back, this area, come back. Like you had to just go in a loop basically to it.
yeah, like knowing as much as I do about the RE games now, I feel like looking back at that kind of stuff, if it does kind of feel like, in a sense, it got added in just to get added in for no other reason than that,
Yeah,
because it is, like you said, very linear.
I think it was like a holdover of like, hey, like this is what we've always done, so we got to do something with it. And I don't think it fits with this style of game because there's almost no point to having it in general because you were just going to get them all anyway. Unless you missed it, then you had to run back and get it. But at that point, you've already killed everything through those rooms. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's like any other points that any specific point that I really enjoyed. Or that I really liked.
I know we all liked when Ashley goes, Leon,
Oh
Leon,
yeah,
Leon.
Leon.
Okay, so I had heard how absolutely god awful Ashley was back in like because I've had people that played Resident Evil and I've talked to them many times. They've talked about Resident Evil 4 all the time and how much they hate dealing with Ashley. She was not nearly as bad as everyone says.
Yeah, I think everyone very heavily hyperbolized. Like she's like at worst annoying, but I wouldn't call her or like the AI of like leading her around.
Yeah,
Like I wouldn't call that in any way bad because there are definitely games that do it worse.
Yeah,
fair,
I feel
fair.
like if anything, it wasn't that bothersome. It was just the execution that was more poorly done. Because like there are games that I'm pretty sure there are games that do the exact same thing, but it's like just having that voice play over and over and over during that one part just got annoying after a while.
I've actually got a couple of points on this. So first off, like I didn't have too big of an issue with Ashley overall because I would normally find a way to like stash her in a corner or something, leave her like somewhere where no one would find her, and then I'd run off, clear the area, then I'd just call her back and go forward. I did have one point though. In very early when you're showing up at the castle and they get the fucking like the flame catapults or trebuchets. And they're just
Yeah.
throwing that around. There's one point I left her at the front door to the area, and I ran in. I started killing everything, and then all of a sudden she got grabbed and then just immediately taken. And I was like, "What the hell's going on?" Because I didn't realize that enemies would actually spawn from that same door.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got screwed one time with that. So I definitely understand the frustrations, but like I didn't have as much issue with dealing with Ashley because I normally found a decent spot to stash her away.
Yeah, I think when you get a chance to take control of her and play her for a while, I think that was also a very weird part of the game. I knew at some point it was gonna happen, but I just didn't expect it to happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, you can actually use Ashley to kill people, like in the one section you play her as.
Yeah, it's actually quite funny how it was utilized and done. But no, you're right. At one point, I think you're able to pick up some stuff and just throw items, and you can literally light one of them on fire.
Oh yeah,
I actually don't remember that.
I think don't quote me.
No,
on
no,
that.
no, no. I'm not saying you're wrong because I also have pretty bad memory at times. So like, that's something I think I might have forgotten.
Yeah, you only play so many RE games, man, before everything blurs together.
Okay, to be fair, I've been blitzing through a lot of Resident Evil lately, so it's like things are definitely blurring. I just finished Resident Evil 0 a little like maybe a month ago or so, and I've been playing Resident Evil 1 remake, so it's like everything does kind of like blur. So my other point though is like because I've also been going through all these Resident Evils, it's interesting seeing how the series has been progressing And one of the things is that I've noticed how the games have been progressing to the point that you've gotten co-op now. So you can
Yeah.
see it start with I think you can start seeing it with like the fact that, like, you know, Resident Evil 2 has like 2 different characters you can play as. You have Sherry that's running around too. I think 3 you have Carlos, and you swap out with him at some point. I want to say there was something with Code Veronica, but because you swap out with Steve a lot. That's right. And then 4 you start seeing you get Ashley, who you kind of like move around and you kind of tell her to stay spot. And I think 0 came after 4, or
Did it?
released
Hold
right
up.
around that time. I will look that up real quick. Resident Evil. I could spell it'd be great. Really? 2016? That's not right.
Okay, so Resident Evil 4's no,
2002,
Zero's original
2002.
release in the West was November 12th, 2002. So that was
Yeah.
3 years before.
I must have looked at the Steam days what it was. So yeah, so that was before 4. So you can see that they were already playing with the ideas of doing co-op back then, because you had Billy that you could swap back and forth with. And then you could tell him to follow along with you. And then after 0 you get 4, where Ashley's kind of second fiddle. And then you got 5 that you have Sheva, but you can kind of see like the evolution between like the AI between there, and seeing like eventually how they got to that point. I remember noticed that mainly when I was playing 0. I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. You can kind of see how it jumps from like Billy to Ashley to Sheva eventually. And then you go all out with 6, and it's just all action mode.
Yeah, and I did not like that at all.
Yeah, 6 was a case of trying to appease everyone but appeasing no one.
Yep.
Yeah. And then even like 2 more things adding on to that co-op thing, which maybe not so much depending on who you ask, but Revelations and Revelations 2 definitely like hyped up the co-op aspect, maybe a little too much.
I have not played Revelations 1, but I did play Revelations 2.
So,
and I feel like 2 is a bit of a step back, but I understand why they were doing it from a narrative perspective. I played with my buddy. He played Barry, I played Claire, and so we played each other's like secondary characters. So so I got stuck with the little girl that threw rocks and just pointed at things.
But also, you're the one that can see the invisible enemies, right?
Yeah, the invisible enemies and like weak points. But like the bricks that she would pick up would break after like 1 to 3 uses.
Oh, damn.
And because it wasn't a permanent item, there was a lot of times I just stand around like I can't do anything because I don't have a brick anywhere. Meanwhile, you got Moira on the other side who has a crowbar who can at least bash their heads in. And you can upgrade the crowbar to be like just like godlike all of a sudden. And she's going to town on her own.
Oh, that sounds like fun. I'm gonna have to play that game at some point.
Yeah, I would definitely say play with a partner though. That's fun. Granted, if anything, I would actually like to see a Resident Evil 0 remake and full co-op with that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Like when they first announced the remake for 4, or okay, even before that, because the remake for 4 had been teased going as far back as like 2020, especially with the NVIDIA leak that happened. That announced like so many different things, like ports for a lot of different things, and even stuff that hadn't even been announced yet, like Kingdom Hearts 4 was like one of the big ones. And like there's still even things that we haven't seen on that NVIDIA leak that like I'm not able to remember off the top of my head, but like Resident Evil 4 was on that, and even going as far back as then, I kept thinking to myself, remake of 4? Really? Like 4 is already as good as it is. Like, why not remake something that absolutely needs it? Like Outbreak, like Zero, like Code Veronica. Like
To be fair,
those games are like whatever you think of them. Like, I don't want to say dated because people do definitely go back and like those games. So like I don't want to say anything negative, but at the same time, their age definitely shows. Like I remember Matt watching you play Zero a lot when you streamed it to Discord,
yeah.
and I thought to myself, okay, this game is cool, and I can definitely see how like the tank control enthusiasts would like it, but wow, this game is dated.
To be fair, I would actually say that I would be fine letting Zero be for a little while. Because while it is dated, it has been upgraded graphically and it looks good in the style that is running at, and I don't think it really needs to be updated. Um, but I could also see it being updated. I would rather have a remake though of Code Veronica. That
Isn't
one needs it.
didn't that game get remastered a couple times if I'm not mistaken?
Zero.
Or Code Veronica.
Zero.
Technically Code Veronica did have a like upgrade, I guess. It had Code Veronica X, which actually is the one I played. But Zero, yeah, that is, I believe that is remastered.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. I still
The
have the
one that I
page up,
played, I
and I'm looking
think,
at
was
Zero
remastered.
now. Original release was GameCube in 2002. It got ported to Wii in 2009. It got ported to PC, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, and Xbox One in 2016, and it got ported to the Switch in 2019.
Okay.
Which I don't know if those are like strictly remasters or not. Like theoretically, they very well could be, but I don't know.
I believe it is. They have an HD remaster is what it's called.
Okay.
So it's not like a complete like remake like 2 and 3 are, but it's a like upgrade to make it look much better, more modern.
So would you say it's more in line with what Resident Evil 1's remake was?
Yes, very much so. Yes. Honestly, I would say right now, if they're going to continue remakes, I would say they should do Code Veronica,
I agree.
then 1, then 0. Or you can flip 0 and 1 around, whichever you want. But I would think 1 would be the one you hit first before that.
Really? Why 1 specifically?
Because it's mainly the start of the series, and I think that it feels much more in line with 2. Granted, I think that I like Resident Evil 1 better than 0, and I think a lot of the fan base would probably be behind that too. But I think 1 and 0 could also stand on its own for a while longer. So Code Veronica is definitely the one that needs it more.
I agree.
Speaking of remakes, though, I only barely got to touch the Resident Evil 4 remake. The atmosphere and just look of everything is a big improvement. I
you think so?
really like the amount of texture, the amount of just the atmosphere feels a little more dark and oppressive. And I've only really gotten into the first house of the demo, and they've definitely changed it up, and it feels very ominous, I guess is the only way I can really say. So it definitely feels like they're trying to cash back into the horror elements. So I wonder how the rest of it will play out.
I haven't gotten a chance to touch it yet, but I do know the only thing I've been reading the updates, if anything, and what it's going to be. The only thing I find interesting so far is the knife system that they have, and I'm kind of excited to see how that's going to be utilized.
That feels a lot like the defense system that they have, I think, in the remakes for 2, but also from what I can think of for Resident Evil 1 remake, and I don't know if 0 had it. But yeah, it's the more reactionary, like, hey, to get you, you pull out the knife and you stab them. You don't pull out the knife normally and fight.
Yeah, so I played through the Resident Evil 4 remake demo a couple times. So from what I realized, the knife is not permanent anymore, but in exchange, you can do a lot more with it.
Okay.
Yeah, from the thing that I've read is that the knife itself, it's duration based now. So you actually have to stop somewhere and repair it for it to be effective.
Oh, that's actually interesting. You have
Either
to
that or if
repair,
it
it's not
either that or if it breaks, you can pick up another knife.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So they kind of combine they kind of just like built on top of the system that I know of for the 2 and 3 remake, where you use it and it would just eventually break and you just have to find another one. The fact that you can now repair it too is very interesting.
Yeah. And
Okay.
there's a lot more that you can do with it too, like blocking melee attacks is the big one, and like parrying things. Like
Is that
if you
something they introduced in 8?
uh no, in 8 there's a block system where you just
7 they have a block system too.
Oh, that's right, they do.
So I wonder if they're trying to tie that back in.
It ties a little more into the 2 and 3 remakes, but I don't want to say too much regarding that.
Okay. That's fair.
But like the single greatest thing that you can do is like ready up the knife the moment you're about to get hit by something, whether it's like a projectile or like a melee attack, and you'll automatically just parry it with the knife. Like you just swat it away and you stagger people.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's
Interesting.
easily one of the most satisfying things.
It's the RE Dark Souls we always wanted.
Honestly, you're not wrong. Because and that's the thing too, because you have increased movement speed in the remake, but the enemies do too to compensate for that. And their flow is like a lot more organic and their movement is a lot more fluid. But then like them trying to like reach out and like grab at you once they get close enough is very similar to how it worked in the original Resident Evil 4. And I know I said like perfect parrying was the single greatest thing. It's not. Like it's part of it, but it's not.
Okay.
And it harkens back to the first gameplay trailer that they showed for Resident Evil 4 remake. Like when was it? Like E3 last year, where they showed off the village fight and you're running through it, and like Dr. Salvador, the chainsaw guy with the burlap sack, just comes out and you can fucking parry the chainsaw with the knife now.
Oh man, maybe I played Resident Evil 4 longer ago than I thought. Damn.
Right?
Uh
You can like
I remember something like that now. Yeah.
the chainsaw.
That sounds ridiculous.
That is the single thing that sold me on this remake, because I remember seeing stuff and I'm like, okay, this looks really good. I don't know how I feel about the horror aspects of it, but my expectation was like, okay, let's see. If this game is good, then awesome. We'll put it in the Pantheon. If it's bad, at least we still have the original Resident Evil 4. But I think it's shaping up to, I don't know about you guys, but I think it's shaping up to surpass Resident Evil 4 in every aspect.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a fantastic job with the remake so far. And I think as long as they keep on that trend and actually pay attention to what they're doing, I think this could be a new level for them.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely like what I've seen so far, and it's very little. I do need to play the demo some more and see how the gameplay feels. But definitely very interested. One comment about you talking about the perfect parry system. As long as it doesn't work like the parry system from Resident Evil 3, the original Resident Evil 3, I'd probably be okay with it because it was a pain in the ass to like nail down when to parry back in Resident Evil 3. Because you had to wait for the enemy, zombie, whatever you want to say it was, to attack you. You had to be like frame perfect in order to dodge. Otherwise, he either bite you or you would just like pull out your weapon or something. And it wouldn't work. So you had to be very, very on point with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know too much about that. I would say that like
It was a pain, and I think that's why they changed it for the 3 remake.
I know that there's something slightly similar to what you described in a 3 remake, but I'm not going to say much more than that.
I know it exists. I know they've changed it a bit, so
Okay.
it works. It works better, and Carlos has like a shove animation, stuff like that. I know some
Yeah.
things for the 2 and 3 remakes, but I'm trying to still go in mostly blind. Mostly.
Yeah, I know this is supposed to be like an RE4 podcast, but I kind of like the fact that we're kind of just talking about RE in general before a major release. This is kind of pretty dope.
I would
Yeah.
say this is definitely more of a RE we're talking about in general, but focus more towards 4 when possible.
Yeah, it's okay, CJ. You can have 2 episodes eventually.
I mean, I did plan
Don't
for
tempt
us
us.
to talk about OG4 and then maybe a few months after the remake releases, which by the way is in 9 days.
Holy
Like
shit,
maybe, yeah, maybe like a month or two after that releases and we've all played it, we can come back, do another episode and be like, so what did you think?
Right. I'm not gonna lie, I'm also down to kind of keeping this RE train rolling for a little bit here, and maybe if we really wanted to actually talk about OG RE4 before the release, because we still got 9 days.
Yeah.
I definitely do want to hit RE2 remake and 3 remake before 4. So
What about
I'll have
Village?
to see how quickly I burn through that.
And
That was my original end goal, was to be like, okay, 2, 3, and then 8. But I may push off a little bit more to play 4 if that's what we end up signing down the line. I do need to track down better hardware though.
Yeah. I will say one expectation I do hold of Resident Evil 4 Remake is I hope it continues the trend that the original Resident Evil 4 held, and even as far back as like 5 and 6 as well, where like sure there are like communities dedicated to speedrunning the whole thing, but 4, 5, and 6 are not exactly games that are meant to be speedran. They're meant to be like, yes, they are linear slogs at times, but they're meant for you, I think. Like, this is just me like thinking about things.
Go on.
But they're meant for people to, I think, take their time and like go through it at whatever speed they wish. And like the linearity of Resident Evil 4, the original version, really lends itself well to that. And I do sincerely hope that 4 Remake also has the play at your pace type of thing. Because even just the fact that it's faster does seem to lend itself to the idea that it's meant to be speedran. But I don't know. I hope that it's like a much longer experience that one necessarily doesn't need to like crash all the way through in maybe like 4 or 5 hours and then just call a playthrough done. Like I do sincerely hope that it takes more than that to play through it.
I think on that note too, I think that's the only thing I'm disappointed about 3 was how short it was. So with
Remake
4,
3, right?
Yeah, remake 3. I'm hoping they don't take any shortcuts like that without trying to spoil so much for Matt here. But I'm hoping they don't take shortcuts like that where big sections are just missing. Because
I'm fine with you talking more about 3. 3, I'm not too worried about. 2 is the one I'm more worried about. So
okay,
but yeah, just a whole missing chunk out of 3. I'm hoping 4. Because 4 is a long game if you take your time going through it. And I kind of want to do that and has the satisfaction, kind of like how RE2 remake is going through that whole process. There is some satisfaction out of that.
So this is actually interesting, talking about how it's and how I would describe it is more methodical. It's what you were describing, CJ, is how how the game series is. I feel like it is definitely a more methodical game series, but at the same time, it has been built for speedrunning. I would argue, because if you look back at how 1, 2, somewhat with 3, but you would get times and scores based off of how long it took you to play and what
Oh
you did.
yeah, I completely forgot about
I
that.
mainly bring that up because of Resident Evil 2. For just to unlock Hunk's story, I had to complete it in 3.5 hours, and had to have 2 saves only, and I had to use no first aid kits on at least one playthrough. So like one scenario, I mean, because you
Yeah,
had to
I
complete all
think
4 scenarios with like a rank, like a certain rank or whatever. But you had to have at least an A rank in the US or Europe also, I think, and it had to be an S rank for Japan, because they shifted off the grading scale. Like it went from like A to E in US and in Europe, and it was S to I think D for Japan. It was weird.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
for the RE2 remake, it's funny because one of the achievements is beat the game taking X amount of steps.
interesting. All right.
So
Yeah.
the speedrunning community definitely worked through that to kind of figure out what was the best optimal path to beat the game in X amount of steps.
Mm-hmm. So like I said, like I do think that the game is definitely methodical. I take my time with it, trying to figure out everything, plan out my routes, all that stuff. Especially like the older games, it's more of like you got to make sure how much ammo you're using, what enemies to kill, things like that. So it definitely has that methodical backbone to it, but at the same time, it definitely encouraged speedrunning. So I'm not surprised that there was a big speedrunning group that got behind 4, especially when they found out about that. What's the glitch? Is it Whitman's
The
glitch or
Ditman
something?
glitch.
Ditman. Okay, that's what it was. Which I think I had heard about that, and I tried to avoid doing that because I wanted to just play it just for what it was, I guess. That's the way to put it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I know a lot of people use like the rifle for the game. One of the things I did not do was use the rifle at all. I went through.
Yeah, you predominantly used grenades to kill all the regenerators and the Iron
That's what it
Maidens.
was. I was trying to remember if it was a shotgun or something else. But okay, yeah, grenades. Because I was trying to use the idea that the grenades would hit in a wide area. And I like sticking with my classic like style of weapons for Resident Evil. I usually try to stick with a pistol, a shotgun, and a magnum. I generally like using that because I would, especially in the older games, I would be very hesitant to use things like the rocket launcher or very limited, like weapons with limited ammo. I would try to hold off for important later parts of the game. So I got in this habit of just using the shotgun and pistol, and then using the magnum like towards the end. So I kind of like rolled that into my 4 playthrough. It worked pretty well actually. The grenades worked a lot.
I think that's another reason why I hold 4 in such high regard. Like, there's nothing wrong with trying to approach it like the other games, and like you were definitely able to do it, Matt. So I commend you.
Mhm.
But I feel like you can't really approach Resident Evil 4 like any of the other games.
I
Like,
would also like to preface that, not preface, but like note that I was definitely being stubborn. I was definitely being stubborn about that, and I probably should have just went with the rocket. Not rocket. That is the thing that's available too. But the sniper rifle, I should have definitely done that because it's easier to deal with enemies. But
I was about to say, wait a second. How is that being anything if you're pulling out a rocket launcher?
well, no, because so you can buy the rocket launcher out of the shops, but I also felt like that would also like skip the encounters, so I did not want.
Yeah,
to do
no,
that.
no, that's the joke I'm poking. It's like, how are you talking about not wanting to use a rifle, and here you are talking about pulling out a rocket launcher?
yeah.
So I was definitely suggested at some points to use a rocket launcher, but I was very stubborn and I did not want to do that. So that is also on me, and definitely made the game harder in some aspects by doing so.
You know
Again,
what?
sticking to only the shotgun, the pistol, and a magnum.
Hey, listen, if
I
if you were playing this on Steam,
I
you
did.
would have probably got, or on the modern one right now, right, where achievements or everything, you would have probably gotten all the hard achievements.
No, I did not, but I did play it on Steam.
What? Crazy.
I'm not gonna pull up the achievements right now though, but
Actually,
Dang.
would it even have achievements on there with that?
it does.
It does? Okay,
It
good
does.
to know.
You know what? Fine, I will pull up achievements.
Watch, you have like all of them.
I just
there
love.
are 12
I love
achievements
how
total.
the
I have
rocket
9.
launcher instant kills all but one enemy in Resident Evil 4. God, what was that thing's name? I'm about to go look it up
Yeah, I
because
feel like I know who you're talking about, but I don't quite remember myself.
I'm sorry, I missed that. What was
I
that
was
one?
like, I just said I love how the rocket launcher in Resident Evil 4 kills all but one enemy.
Jeez, that's fucking ridiculous. I did not get the do not shoot the water, a heart of steel, and what are they worth? So collect all battle caps, hardest difficulty, and something about summon the the master of the lake. Don't rock the boat.
Ah, that
Oh,
one.
I don't know
That
what that
one
one
I know.
was.
Yeah, that one.
that's a tough one.
What is that one?
I think it's like fight the Del Lago, which is the boat monster thing that you have to
Yeah,
fight,
yeah.
and
With the
don't
harpoons and
fall out of the
everything.
boat once.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
I think I could probably get that down eventually. I know I got certain. So again, being a bit stubborn and holdover from playing the older games, I didn't want to waste a full magazine, not magazine, full. You know, we'll go magazine. It's probably the wrong term, but for the Magnum. Um,
Ah,
so there was the boss where you fight the mutated version of the little guy. I can't think what his name is.
Salazar.
Salazar, thank you. When he's like turned into a plant or whatever, and I'm like, all right, cool. I fight him, get up on the catwalk. I'm there, I'm shooting him, and I used most of the rounds for the Magnum without reloading, and I then used the pistol one out. But the first time I ran through it, I used all the rounds for the Magnums, reloaded, and then I shot like one, maybe two more shots of the Magnum, and then he died. I was like, oh well, I can't have that. so I quit, loaded it from the previous save, and I ran it again, stopped at that last one before reloading, swapped to a different weapon, and I think it was like pistol or shotgun or something, and I killed him with that, so that way I can then go to the shop right afterwards and then like buy the upgrade for the Magnum, which would then give me a free refill.
Huh.
Yeah, honestly, when I saw you do that, I was like, wait, why are you doing this? What are you doing? And then you explained yourself. I'm like, oh, that's smart.
Yes, but at the same time, I think the game adapts for what weapons you use. And Magnum's the outlier because it doesn't really like to give you those like very special rounds. But the rest of the weapons, I think it just keeps dropping you ammo for the weapons that you currently are have in your inventory or that you've bought. So the only ones I think that I got every once in a while was SMG rounds. But otherwise, I went through most of the game pretty well stocked with shotgun and pistol rounds. And because it drops from enemies, you're almost always going to have ammo available to you. Oh, you know what? Not SMG. I think it was sniper. That's the ones that usually drop for me.
Oh yeah, that I can understand how that would be annoying. Because
I mean,
like,
I got it, and I would just sell them afterwards.
yeah, I think you said you never bought the sniper once, right? Like neither
Nope.
of them.
And then I got the scope, and I didn't need the scope, so I sold the scope.
Sniper was my favorite overused weapon.
Oh
Honestly,
man.
I think mine. The first time I ever played it, which was the Wii version, it was the SMG was my favorite, or no, the TMP. Sorry. Then second playthrough I ever played, which was PS3. I think it was the riot gun because back then I didn't even know that easily the two most broken weapons in the entire game were the Red 9 with both of its upgrades and the Striker.
which which are the ones that I actually did end up using. Red Knight was definitely a good pistol. I think someone had mentioned the Red Nine like a while ago, so that's why I picked that up. And I was suggested to get the Striker during my current playthrough, or my when I was playing through, I was suggested to get the Striker, so I did eventually go get that.
Yeah, I think
Actually,
either
I think
I recommended it or I think Chris, who did the Fire Emblem Engage podcast with me for the people at home, recommended it as well.
I know Chris wanted me to do the Ditman glitch, so I kept to tell him no.
Yeah, like I asked him if he wanted to do this podcast, and he said, like, I have nothing to contribute other than like the knowledge of the Ditman glitch. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair.
Okay. To be fair, it is funny at times, especially when you do it for. I think that's how you get the weird cutscene at the end with Ashley. I think you have to do the Ditman glitch so it desyncs you, and then you get on
Yeah,
Yeah, and then
the
it's just
that's
Leon
exactly how
going
it
the
away
jet
happened.
ski go.
with the jet ski and Ashley on it, just like stuck in place.
All right, let's get going. She's just left there.
Yeah, she just gets left there, and you're just like BRB going out to sea.
Definitely definitely is oh, 1 second, excuse me.
So I would ask this because I had a question because I prepared this script like months ago, and looking back through it, I had a question that was like, yeah, Resident Evil 4 has been ported to everything. This was back before we had the confirmation of a remake. Like, do you think it's going to continue to be ported like as time goes on, like to everything else?
Ooh,
And
that's a
now the
good one,
question becomes like, do you think the remake is going to get ported to everything else as time goes on?
right? Because we've seen the remake get already released on a lot of major consoles already. So I honestly don't know. Like, what is there left to remaster? It's already so damn good.
Yeah, like the game. I'm looking at the platforms that Resident Evil 4 OG is currently on with the so it's this is not in order of release, but it's GameCube, PS2, PS3, PS4, PC, Steam, Wii U Virtual Console, which I assume is the Wii version that has the motion controls. Switch, iOS, Android, Zebo, whatever that is. Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Oculus Quest 2.
It
I
feels
think
like it's
I
like
I think I just
on a
named like
majority
15
consoles
different
at this
things.
point.
A hefty list is what it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Yeah, so do we think 4 remake is going to see the same amount of life that this game has?
Ah,
Mm,
man, it's a hard one because
I'm
if
gonna say no.
yeah, I would have to say no only because if they've been so successful with the remake so far, the 2 and 3 would have seen the exact same thing. But at the same time, I guess it's gonna really depend. No, I don't think it would even really depend because RE4 remake is made in such a specific way with the new engine that they got. I think this is gonna be the first time it's gonna just start a different trend for them completely.
Mm. I
Mhm.
so my thought process is that I think we're in a much different cultural period that why it was such a big such a big hit back in the day and thus ported to basically every console possible at the time um is that this isn't going to revolutionize anything. I think this is it's still very nostalgic for people, and people are going to love it. But I think we're going to get on this generation of consoles, PC, and I would say VR. I'm not sure which platforms for VR. I mean, there should be plenty of them out there, but I do think that there's going to be a VR version made, at least for PlayStation, because it'll be there for supporting that. I think they announced that, right? To be honest, but we may get for next generation, but at that point, I'm quite there. I don't think it will go next gen too. I think we got such a long time before then that they're not going to.
Fair. I will say, considering that 7, 8, and the remakes of 2 and 3 got ported to the Switch because it supports the RE engine fairly well, I would think that 4 remake would also come to the Switch, but I'm skeptical simply because the original version the HD remaster of the original 4 is already on Switch. But I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh, one other thing I would like to point out is that also companies have been moving more towards backwards compatibility. So I don't think I think we also won't be getting new releases of this game past this era, because they'll just have the old version of it that you can just play off of your current game list. Like Xbox has been heavily supporting backwards compatibility. So if you bought it for Series X and S, you could probably play on their next console down the line. If you own it on Steam, you're basically going to always be able to play it on PC. And I would see PlayStation joining that, but I think Nintendo, if they eventually get it, would be on a later system. And I don't think that they would follow suit, at least not with their current marketing strategy.
I get the sense that if those rumors of a newer Switch, or no, like not newer Switch, but like the Switch 2 or whatever they decide to call it, if those rumors end up being real, I could see 4 remake ending up on that. But
but I would consider that as part of this gen then.
True. But like maybe, I don't know.
Actually, to be fair, I think Nintendo's kind of working on their own system, their own thing. So like comparing them really ever to Sony and Microsoft is not really a great comparison.
Very true. Yeah, I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah,
like
but
whether
I
or
do
not.
know.
Oh, what? Sorry.
I was gonna say I do know when we have another podcast talking about whatever the next RE is, everything's gonna change again.
To be fair, I also don't think we talked too much about this one, about 4 with like bosses, weapons, and all that. I did realize a little bit ago to amend my point of favorite point in the game, just because of how fucking ridiculous it was. The basically the roller coaster inside the castle, and then immediately going into the lava room. I think the lava room was my favorite part of the game, just because it felt ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, where you're fighting the 2 El Gigantes.
Yeah. Were there 2 El Gigantes?
Yeah, there were 2.
No, not that one. Not that one. Inside
not
the castle.
that one.
Inside the castle. There's like a whole like lava
with the
room
guys
with
on
platforms
the
that you have to get around and things, and then
with the guys on the towers and like shooting flamethrowers at you.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, that room can die.
No, it definitely was annoying.
Go off
I
somewhere
think I
die.
had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, honestly though, because you're mentioning that, I kind of wouldn't mind if you wanted to do it, CJ, actually have another podcast where we do talk about RE, like just purely just RE4, because I think I want to go back and look at some of the stuff and kind of bring up more of that interesting level design, because that lava room is definitely dope.
Yeah,
I'd be down.
Yeah, and I think I'm definitely in like a little bit of the majority of people that I didn't care for so much of the village stuff in the beginning.
Yeah, it's later on in the game where I start falling a lot more in love with the environment, minus bits of the castle, because I just don't like the castle.
I would say
I like the castle because it felt more like the old style Resident Evil stuff, even though it was very linear. Go ahead, CJ. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was gonna say I think my favorite part of the entire experience was the part where you get Ashley and you're running back through the village trying to escape, only to go through a bunch of areas you've previously visited and find that like it's pitch black outside now. Like it rained, so it's very foggy. The enemies are now like slowly stalking after you, and because you now know if they're plaga infections, they have like glowing red eyes, and you have easily one of my favorite tracks in Resident Evil 4 proper playing in the background the whole time, which
Okay.
is Echo in the Night. God, that song is so good. It plays up the horror ambiance very well. It's just
I do remember
I
it
could talk
being
about like maybe the battle themes when you fight off the Ganados. Like some I could leave, some I didn't even like really notice or pay much attention to. Hell, I think the best one out of all of those is when you're on the island fighting the Ganado mercenaries and you just hear the drums in the background, and I'm just like, ooh, it's tense. I like this. But a lot of like it plays at the atmospheric horror card with its soundtrack very well, I think. Like with Echo in the Night, which plays in the Nighttime Village segment, Evil Malaise, which plays only in like 2 rooms of the whole game. It's when you're it's in the room where you're doing the sliding puzzle as Ashley with all of the armors
oh okay,
that
yeah.
try to attack you, and
Yeah.
it plays on the island in the room where you find and encounter the final regenerator, which is just like a room with like prison cells, and you can just hear the regenerator in like the farthest one, just like breathing heavily. And like just some of the atmospheric sound design of that
That
game just lends itself so well to the environments, however dimly lit or brightly lit they are. Just it works. It
Yep.
works.
were the
Very well.
regenerators they were on the island, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I was worried. I was thinking about a different Resident Evil for a moment. Okay. Yeah, because I think I remember the prison now, because that was actually I actually forgot about that for a bit. Huh. Because I think there's the one that they're trying to get jump scared that's laying on like a uh what is it? What are those things called? It's like the like the cot that like you can lift up and down that you would normally have in ambulances. Like it was like laying on one of those inside one of the cells, I think.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't on a cot. It was on a gurney.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was thinking the wrong name there. But yeah, I think that one was they were trying to set up to scare you, but I think for me, I kind of had a feeling that was going to be one. Um, but that was also a like that was prison was after the castle, right?
Yeah, no, the prison was part of the island. I think it was either right before or right after the battle against Krauser.
Oh, and then you got the stupid bug things that were invisible. Oh, that's that whole part. Oh, yeah.
I
Okay, I
think
get it.
the bugs, the Novistadors, were exclusive to the castle.
No, because they were in the sewers too, because you'd have to follow them underneath,
Aren't the
I
sewers part
believe.
of the castle?
Uh,
I feel like they were in a sense.
I thought they were part of the prison,
Time to go back to YouTube and rewatch
right?
the whole gameplay.
I have to go
Right.
back now.
And then like
Uh,
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the single greatest character
yeah,
in
who's
all of Resident Evil 4, the Merchant.
Which,
what are
by
you
the way,
buying?
I killed the first time I played the game.
Oh no.
Did not know that. Did not know the consequences of what was going to happen for that particular section.
Oh
Oh
man,
yeah, I'm totally forgetting about a whole section of this map of this game. Uh,
just like the merchant is easily like the single source of levity for that entire game, other than like Leon's one-liners, like "Where's everybody going? Bingo?"
Yeah,
Or
right.
like, or "No thanks, bro." God, I know they kept the bingo line for 4 remake. I hope they keep that line too.
oh,
Oh,
you know
that'd
what?
be
I think the
fantastic.
prison was like right before the castle. It was leading to the castle.
Hmm.
So I don't think it was part of the main island. Not island, the main village
I guess like
map.
I was talking strictly about like one room with a typewriter and like jail cells on the island. But whatever.
We'll have to look. Yeah, we'll have to look at this again.
Yeah. Yeah, like another time then. But
Yeah.
easily like going back, like, yeah, the merchant. The merchant is easily the funniest character in that entire game. Just like the way he talks, which fun fact, the guy who voiced the merchant in Resident Evil 4 is also the same person that voiced Leon, Paul Mercier.
Huh.
Really?
Yes.
Holy shit! I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, just you hear him as Leon just doing like corny lines or something like that, and then you hear him just welcome as he opens up his jacket sleeve to show ammunition.
Yep.
Just
I actually have a
ah,
friend that
I'll buy it at a high price.
I have a friend that actually cosplayed as the merchant for
Oh my
CQB.
god, that's amazing.
It was good. He got stopped quite a bit.
What are
It's
you
it was
buying?
great.
What are you selling? Like, is that all, stranger? Thank you. God, I'm sad that Paul Mercier didn't come back as Leon, but they got the guy who played Leon in 2 remake to come back for 4 remake. So that works out a little well in terms of consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Like I'd be, but like we know that the merchant is in 4 based on the promotional material. We do not know yet who voices him, so I would be very curious to see if Paul actually comes back to play the merchant.
Oh man, the whole internet's gonna celebrate.
Wouldn't they? Oh man, that would be so fun. But yeah, we don't know.
Mhm.
On the next episode of Pause and Effect.
Yeah, like
It
we're gonna
turns
have
out
to
I
wait a
was
little while
incorrect.
until then.
I do actually think I actually am incorrect. I think the prison's part of the island.
Hmm.
But there's plenty of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, when we come back to this, we are definitely going to have a lot more to talk about, both in terms of the original and in terms of the remake. Because, like I said before, we are 9 days away from the release of the remake. Because it comes out on the 24th, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Something
I
like
believe
that.
so.
But
And
it
it,
would
it would
actually
be,
be good.
I
Good.
was gonna say it would be interesting. If the you know what, it would be interesting if the next segment of this RE4 stuff when we're talking about it, it'd be pretty neat to kind of actually pull up videos and just kind of watch through some of the stuff again, even if it's just small clips.
Mhm. I also think it would be good to do revisit Resident Evil 4 after the remake is complete and we've done it. That way we can compare and contrast the different parts of it and
Yeah,
what
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
changed and what's better and what we liked about which one more. Just I think that would definitely be a much more focused discussion.
most definitely.
Absolutely. I'd be very interested in doing that. And I'm going to say that's all the time we have. But before we close out, do you guys have anything you want to plug or shout out before we finish up?
I
Not
think
me
the only
personally.
thing I think the only thing I want to shout out to myself is this is a reminder for me to actually play the RE4 demo.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely do that.
I'm just hoping I can blitz through everything before we have our next podcast.
Yeah. And Tony, forgive me for being presumptuous, but don't you do a podcast as well?
Sure do.
What's it called if you want to tell the people at home?
Oh, I appreciate letting me do a shameless plug here.
Yeah,
But,
that's why
Be
I
as
asked
shameless as
the
possible.
right?
that's
As
why I ask at
shameless
the
as
end of
possible.
everything.
It's all about you now.
Do you want to plug or
Uh,
shout anything out before we finish up? Like that is
Yeah.
your time to shill.
Yeah, so the podcast is essentially called Let's Start from the Beginning, and it's just a podcast where I interview different people who are in different businesses, and they kind of share the journey of how they started everything.
All right. Like when are the two of us going to be on the podcast? I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I
Oh,
am nowhere near
CJ,
ready for that.
you will be on very soon because one of the things I want to definitely talk about, and this is like a drop too, right, for a future episode, because you're gonna have a lot to share now that you've done a bit of YouTube and a bit of podcast publishing.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a fun episode, I think.
So remember, everyone, like, subscribe, donate, Patreon, buy me a coffee. Do all those things for both these guys right here.
Yeah, I think
Patreon
Patreon or
had
coffee are
happened.
going to be like later down the road.
All right.
But yeah, that's our show.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys both for being here.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, like sure we didn't touch on like Resident Evil 4 as much as either of you wanted because we did like self-introspect a little bit on that a couple times. But yeah, it's fun to just ramble like this.
Yep, and at least it's out there now that everyone could hate me for not liking Resident Evil 4 as everyone like everyone else.
I am gonna start a hashtag movement on Twitter. You're gonna get it, Matt.
Look, I'm ready. Just burn me at the stake.
Oh man. But yeah, that's the show. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and please stay tuned for the next episode. Have a great rest of your day and take care.